Just want to thank Mark and Sally for the invite today. I'm really honoured to come and speak to everybody, and I just wanted to say I found Nick and Jerry's presentation really fascinating. And I focus so much on the sign language and the deaf side of things that it's made me realise actually where there's a few areas where we could improve our content and the stuff we create to make it more accessible. So thank you very much for that. So what I'm going to just run through today is just talk a bit about CDA very quickly, talk about our journey through lockdown, where we more or less set up a TV station to try and create accessible content in British Sign Language. And then I'm going to go through just two methods that we use to caption content or caption what we do. And you don't have to be a specialist to learn how to do it. Anyone can do it. So hopefully you'll watch this and think, do you know, we're going to do a video and we're going to try and caption it or create a transcript. And I've got a couple of tips, because captioning is getting easier now with, so I guess, automatic captioning that can be provided by things like Zoom. But it's kind of harder to do with a video that you're going to create. And that puts a lot of people off creating transcripts or captioning their videos. So is that all right? Everybody happy with that? Yeah, good. I like to try and get regular feedback on Zoom meetings because it goes incredibly quiet and I can't get any reactions from people, and I feel like I'm standing in a desert alone talking to nobody, but I'll do my best. Right, so my presentation today is being done completely through a piece of software called OBS, which is called outsourced or outside broadcasting software. So if you're interested to know how I made this or put it together, did it really basically. I did it this morning before the meeting to try and get it in place, so that's what I did. And so OBS is what it's called, and it's a way of integrating things together to try and make, well, content really. Loads of streamers use it all around the world. It's a really common thing. It's completely free. And once you get the hang of it, quite easy to use. So first off, I'm just going to say that I'm the Chief Executive of Cambridgeshire Deaf Association. We support British Sign Language users and people who are profoundly or severely deaf, where it creates a really significant communication problem in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. We support around 400 people, and out of the staff team at Cambridgeshire Deaf Association, we have about 40 staff, about 20 volunteers, and of our staff, 35 of them are deaf British Sign Language users. So sign language and deafness are completely ingrained into the organisation. So during lockdown, everybody had to stay at home. The first lockdown, the sun shone, it was kind of new, and people were jumping on Zoom, and it was a bit novel, and there were quizzes and all that kind of stuff. So we moved all our activity onto Zoom and held 3 online Zoom meetings per week where people who were isolated could catch up. Then it got to lockdown 2, and I think there was a bit more fatigue setting in with everybody over this whole lockdown thing, and it was colder and darker, more depressing. And we noticed that the people who were attending our Zoom meetings were dropping a bit, because with Zoom, you've got a camera on you all the time. You kind of have to be a bit conscious, really, don't you, of what you look like and what's in the background and how much washing up. I've got that door closed there so you can't see the washing up pile behind me. So we thought what we'd do is try and utilise the space in Cambridge that we had as a community hall. It's been there for nearly 100 years, but not in use. And how could we utilise that? So we decided to try and make more content in sign language. Now, during the first lockdown, we made about 40 different coronavirus updates in sign language to take news and information that wasn't being translated in sign language. So you might have seen the briefings where you had an interpreter in the corner of a briefing and signing what's going on. Then you had when that finishes, you've got this really kind of important bit just after it. The interpreter disappears, and then you've got the expert and the kind of newscaster then having a chat, really summarizing what's just happened and what do we need to take from that, what's going on. There's no interpreter for that bit. So what we decided to do was to create loads of videos, and then to explain those kind of things all the way through lockdown. And then we decided that we'd try and start making some content for people to enjoy, like games and quizzes online and different things like that. Now, I'm just going to explain why sign language is different to English in terms of why not just caption everything? Why does it have to be in sign language? Well, I'm going to pick on, I think I'm going to pick on Sally. So, Sally, do you speak any foreign languages?
No, I don't know.
Right, you don't. Not one.
No. I wouldn't say so, no.
No, okay, right. So I've got a challenge for you, Sally.
Okay.
I'm going to give you £1 million, right? If in 2 years you can learn to speak Turkish to a functional level, like in Turkey, go to Turkey, live your normal life, get a job, speak Turkish, right? Now, £1 million, do you accept the challenge?
Yes.
You've got nothing to lose, right?
No.
So no, nothing to lose, everything to gain. So what are you going to do you think, to maximize your chances of learning Turkish?
Speak lots of Turkish to people.
Okay.
Try things out.
Do you think you might live in Turkey for a bit? I mean, that might be a good idea, mightn't it? You know, stay out there nice and cheap in a hostel, but just immerse yourself in the language, right? I think that's what I would do. I'd be on the first plane to Turkey, day one, trying to learn the language, right? So challenge accepted. Do you think you could do it?
Give it a go, yeah.
Okay, great. All right, but I've got 2 caveats now. They might change your mind. You're not allowed to hear any Turkish over the next 2 years. Okay, so you're not allowed to hear the language. And secondly, you're prohibited from actually hearing yourself speak the language as well. So you really can't speak it either. So do you still fancy the challenge?
I think that would be very, very hard.
The only way you can learn Turkish now is by reading Turkish on doctors' prescriptions and on TV captions, right? It's a mega different challenge, isn't it? So when I talk about deafness, I'm talking about everybody and nobody at the same time. It's a spectrum. There's lots of people who experience it. So I'm giving you a kind of extreme example, but there's a lot of deaf people in this country who have never heard a word of English, have never spoken a word of English, just use sign language, which has a different structure to English anyway in the way you do it. And so when important information comes up relatively quickly on captions, it can be incredibly difficult to really kind of understand what's actually going on. So that gives you an idea of why we try and focus a bit on sign language, and that's why we did the content. Right, so I'm going to get right into it now and show you some videos about what we did to transform our hall in Cambridge into a TV studio. I haven't got all the pictures. I haven't also audio described it, so I'm going to talk over the images as they go through to describe what's going on. So here we go. Well, in fact, I'll show you this clip from Anglia TV first, which shows it, shows what we did, if you've got a few minutes. Lost a bit of weight since then. So now there's a kitchen on set. So there we go. And we genuinely have to put it all back in a cupboard at the end as well, which is a little bit of a pain. So here's a little bit of a slideshow that I'll put together quickly. I'm going to describe it as I go through, just to show some of the stages of what we went through in our hall. So we put lights on the beams at the top of the hall, so we didn't have to keep putting lights up and down because that's awkward. So we thought we'd permanently put them up there. So we got an electrician in, my friend. We spent a lot of time trying to wire the place up. And you can see the wall at the back there's white, which we thought was a good idea, but actually it's not, because it reflects too much light back, so you can't adjust it. We've got a little gallery with a green screen that I'll show you how we use that later on to do translations. We covered the radiators up so they look tidy, and then created like a This Morning style TV show called What's On. That was first. Then realized we had to get rid of the white, so we put brickwork wallpaper up to create that kind of look that you can see with the kind of more dynamic looking brickwork in the background. Are you all with me so far? Yeah, still got everybody? Good, thank you. So basically we turned our hall into a TV studio, and the idea is to create as much content as possible to give people as much to watch in sign language during lockdown, but not just that, to have some kind of interactivity too. So something that's often overlooked is the fact that people who can hear can listen to the radio, and a show like LBC, for example, or Radio 5 Live. And all through that show, people are calling in with their views and opinions. And what that does is it broadens out the debate. You find out what people are thinking out in the world. If you're a BSL user, you don't get that opportunity because you can't hear the radio. And then how are you going to give your opinions anyway in sign language? So we set up the first, as it mentioned in that clip, one of the first radio style phone-ins where we use Zoom and our technology that we had, so people could ring in with their own views. So I'll show you a little bit of that, now. So this is the phone-in, and that's our presenter Daryl, and this is the roadmap announcement that Boris made earlier in the year. And so we watched the roadmap together, and then people were able to call in after watching the roadmap and speak to two of our members of staff about their questions linked to the announcement and what was going to happen. So you can see there we have callers calling in. This guy's asking a question about, it might actually be, you might be able to hear that, I can't hear that, but the interpreter is saying there that he's asking a question about quarantine and going on holiday. Obviously, he loves his holidays. This is where we had an example of getting a local politician who obviously regularly is on social media and the radio on to talk to the deaf community. That's all using OBS, which is the same situation I'm using now. We took the football show that we made. We worked with Peterborough United and moved it into the football stadium during the Euros, which was a logistical nightmare really, but it made it all feel made it all feel good. And unfortunately, while we were there, but incredibly lucky, the stadium flooded, but all of our equipment was fine. And there we go. It's like a football phone in. You've got a fan calling in to talk about their views about football, which is basically, I think, unique in this country. We did yoga. So this is yoga. Yeah, it's not Tai Chi. With the interpretation done live, so people who sign can understand the yoga. And then this is our most popular video ever. This is my dad. He wanted to do a little video to tell people how to use transcription software, and it got viewed like something like 100,000 times in a few days. People loved it. They thought it was just a sweet old man who knew how to use a mobile phone. And then this is the quiz that we also produce, which worked really well for us. So I'm not gonna labor the point about all that, but just to say that during the lockdown period, all of our videos amassed 1 million minutes being watched by people, which was an incredible result, but showed that there was a real demand from the deaf community, not just in Cambridgeshire but elsewhere, to access more content in sign language, because there isn't an awful lot to watch in sign language. So that's all that TV stuff to one side. Now I'm going to just go into how you might want to caption your own video. So we're going to show you, there's a couple of bits of software to use. We'll get to the right bit. You can see there, it's called OBS Studio. This is the one that I'm using right now. It's called OBS. If you want to make a note of that, jot it down, have a play with it yourself if you're interested in making live streamed content where you can bring in captions to it. And secondly, the other piece of software I'm going to use here is called Otter AI, which is a transcription piece of software. So that's, and to be fair, I've picked a pretty bad clip to test this equipment with, and you'll see why in a second. But so using Otter, and then another piece of software called Subtitle Edit. So I'm just going to show you some videos about how that works. So the next video you're going to see is the England deaf football manager, a guy called Andy Smith. He's used to be a Premier League player in Scotland. Used to be a Premier League player in Scotland, and he's now the manager, and he's now talking after training for the Great Britain deaf football team, and we've got the task now of trying to transcribe it. Right, so that's going to be a challenge, right, isn't it? Because he's got quite a thick Scottish accent there. So using my mobile phone here, I've downloaded an app called Otter AI, and that's a piece of transcription software. So you just put it near the speaker, and it's going to transcribe as much as it possibly can. So here is the transcription software working with Andy, and so what's going to be shown on the screen is a screen record of what it's actually capturing while Andy's talking. Well, so that was a bit of a struggle. I don't know if you could see the screen and what was coming up, but there was obviously plenty of mistakes. If someone speaks received pronunciation, it works a lot better. But it does give me the bulk of the text that I need then to edit to then put into captions. So what we'll do then is export that text to my computer, just have a quick read through. I can see any obvious mistakes. So I've got a transcript of what he's just said. It saves so much time for me because I'm not a transcriber, and we do use a transcriber who's based in Cambridge called Quick Brown Fox. Charges about £1 a minute for stuff to be transcribed. That's also a good option. So what you end up with is just a load of text. And what we then have to do is then put that onto the video and time the subtitles. Now, this can be really laborious if you use standard kind of software to do your videos, because you have to get each bit and time the caption. Some of you may have tried that in the past. It can take a long time. And this is mainly what puts people off captioning content, because of the time it takes. With mobile phones and video these days, people just kind of want to put the stuff out there and just go with it. So if you add on 2 or 3 times the amount of time it took to make the video just to caption it, it kind of puts people off. So here's a piece of software called Subtitle Edit Pro. It's available on the Mac and PC. It's worth, I think you have to pay about 20 quid for it, but well worth investing, because it really helps you quickly time the subtitles. So the next video I'm going to show you is that piece of software being used. Everybody still with me? Am I going off a bit too quick? Yeah.
It's
by the
fine.
way,
I think we just can't hear the audio of the videos that you're playing. So if that's important, then we can't hear it.
oh, so you couldn't hear Andy speaking then?
No, but we could see the...
Ah, okay, I didn't realise that. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, he's basically speaking in quite a thick Scottish accent. So that's what was being captioned. So here we are. I'm going to show you how Web Captioner works. Basically, you get all your text, you've got the video, and you just have to press enter when the sentence starts and finishes, and it times that caption. Here we are. So what's happening on the screen there is, it might be difficult for you to see, but all the text is on the right hand side of the screen. And at the bottom, you can see the waveform of what he's saying. And more or less, every time he starts a new sentence, all I do is just press enter, and it times that caption. So I'll just keep playing it. Press enter. Press enter again. So all you have to do then is you can save that and export it to another video program like Premiere Pro, or you can just burn the subtitles directly into the video straight from this. So as soon as you've done that, which takes a few minutes, you're then left with this video with the burnt on captions on the screen. So did you all see how that worked? Like obviously some steps removed, like in the way that works, but it all takes a little bit of practice. And if you're serious about captioning your stuff or providing transcripts, which Nick and Jerry said are also super important, this is a kind of cheap shortcut way around it by using an app and doing it that way. So that's one way of doing it. It's where you have software, Otter on your phone, and something called Subtitle Edit Pro. And then secondly, I'm just going to show you this other free way, real quick, because I know we're over time, but real quick, real free way of just how you can use a bit of software called Web Captioner, which is available online for free, and OBS, which is what I'm using now to create a caption. So this is Web Captioner. This is the web page, and what it's doing is automatically captioning what I'm saying. Now, the caption quality is not that good because my microphone is not ideal. I haven't got the right headset, and you kind of want the mic closer to where you're speaking. But that's how the software works. So what you do in OBS is this is all super easy, take me and make me big, like there. So I'm just gonna make myself a bit bigger. Nice and quick. And then I'm going to get the captions into a decent size caption box. You just crop the piece of, crop the size of the square that you're using, and then just drop the captions into a nice place on the screen. And with OBS, you can record this. So you could talk have the captions working. You can also change the captions, so if you have regular words it misunderstands, you can make sure it understands what they are. You also kind of get used to the time and pace of the captions to create it. I could record this and then send it to someone immediately, or put it online if there's something I wanted to say. What we're all about really is trying to reduce the amount of time these things take so we can get more content out there which is accessible. And that's really been the driver for me since, especially since the second lockdown began, when we created 80 hours of content. Anyway, I'll leave it there because I've gone over. There was a couple more things I want to show you, but you know, we've all got lives to lead. So thank you very much for watching.
Andrew, thank you very much for that. Both presentations have just been brilliant, and given that I've sat through some of these things before, I've just kind of learnt so much. And Andrew, certainly some of that software, I think we did a few videos at the beginning of the lockdowns and stuff, and I couldn't find an easy way of doing the captioning. So finding that easy way of doing the captioning is just a revelation, really. So thank you for that. Any quick questions, folks? You want to raise your hand? If you raise your hand, hopefully I'll notice, and you can do a couple of quick questions. Rensa, have you got a question? Do you want to unmute yourself and
Brilliant,
ask?
thank you. So I already know a little bit about accessibility because I used to work as a disabled students officer. But what I found really interesting about the first talk was talking about which file types are accessible. If we have things like a PowerPoint, I tried to provide them in like a doc format, but is there a better format? What kind of, if you've just got text that you're going to copy paste to be used by people with screen readers, is doc the best format, or is there another one that's easier to access?
I would say PowerPoint's okay if you get the slides beforehand and then not PDF, because then you can actually look through it and keep up. That's what I try and do when I come to say CCBS. I get them to send me the slides beforehand, and they're okay in a PowerPoint, but a Word doc could work as well. Yeah, that works quite well. I think that's what me and Jerry were using for our notes today. Instead of running through the PowerPoint, our end is using a Word doc and just running down it. But yeah, either way for me works. I don't know what Jerry thinks.
Yeah, I agree that PowerPoint just can be fiddly if you're using it sort of as things happen. So it is good to get slides prior to anything. And yes, certainly putting stuff in a doc is brilliant. Yeah, I mean, it does help quite a lot.
Brilliant, thanks. I always get requests for things like that from people with other disabilities as well. So if they want to change the text, like the font or the colour or whatever. So I think that ends up being a favourite. Thanks.
Brilliant, thanks. Elsa.
Yeah, just about the PDF. If you have a version of the PDF that has already got recognised text, would that be any better, or is it still the same as opposed to images in PDF?
So if it's, go on, Jerry, you tell her.
Yeah, I was going to say,
it's your bag.
Yeah. PDFs are accessible if they've been created directly from text. So if you're creating a PDF file and you saved it from, let's say, a Word document, that would be okay. Where the problem exists is for speed. A lot of times people just take photographs of text, and that is the issue that causes a problem for a screen reader. So if you compile a PDF kind of, let's say, properly, it should be readable with a screen reader. If you label all your images that are included in the PDF, the screen reader should read those out. But if you just take a photograph of, let's say, an existing document, that is when the issue it occurs. Take a photograph and convert it to a PDF. Not very good for screen readers. It just struggles to identify anything from within that.
I think also with PDFs, when I've come across them as well, say for example annual accounts, because I use them quite a bit as a fundraiser. So normally they're PDF'd, and then I'll use my OCR reader with JAWS on it, and it'll basically convert it. And it's pretty good. Most of the time it'll probably convert it and get all the text across to me. But when it gets down to the accounts and the tables, it doesn't see that. It just sees that as, you know, 4 lines of columns, but it just reads it all out to you at once. So you've got to try and work out what number was in what column, because it doesn't break it. It doesn't see it as a table. It just sees a bunch of text.
Yeah.
So
if you've got 5 pages of that to go through, it's
yeah,
it's impossible. Really.
Cool. Any other questions, folks? Was there anything from the chat, Sally?
I've got one. Would Microsoft Sway work better for things like newsletters and the PDF linked to what you were just talking about? Microsoft Sway? Yeah.
I've come across it.
It probably does work better. But as we, Microsoft products tend to function better with screen readers than a lot of other things because of their the proliferation really of Microsoft stuff with regard to offices and the world.
Yeah, and I think newsletter wise, I think we use MailChimp, which is it works quite well. And I think I mentioned before as well, you know, when I was talking about jump around keys and headers, when I mentioned it, I think it was in CCVS thing, and also we started doing it now, is having in-page links that you can jump to as well. So then you can, in our newsletter, we just have the headings and then the in-page links jump to that. So once again, not everyone is always interested in the whole newsletter, such as CCVS do a monthly one. And I'm really only interested in, say, the training and the funding part. So I'll just jump to them using them in-page links, which is always quite handy.
James, got a quick question.
I noticed that they're making quite a big thing about accessibility being designed into Windows 11 rather. Has anybody heard anything about how that might sort of change the game for any of these things?
In terms of screen readers, Windows 11 has not really brought anything new to the table. They do, Windows from, well, forever has had a built-in screen reader called Narrator. It was not really very useful for most of the Windows versions that have been released, but from Windows 8 onwards, it has become a lot better and is, you know, an alternative in some cases. The difference between Windows 11 and Windows 10 for Narrator is actually 0. They've not done anything to improve or change it. So I would say from visually impaired person's point of view, no, it hasn't changed.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Jerry. Guys, we're now 15 minutes over, so can I just say thank you very much to Jerry, Nick and Andrew for those presentations. We will be sending out copies of the slides, perhaps now not as a PDF, Nick. We'll try and remember to do that. What we'll also do is include the links for the software that Andrew was talking about in some of those as well, so people can give those a try. There is a follow-up questionnaire that you can access from the chat, but again, that will include a link to that in the email. So thank you all very much for coming. Thank you to the presenters again, and hopefully I will see some of you again tomorrow or at one of the next meetings. Chris, sorry, you put your hand up. Oh, it's just clapping. So thank you.